Hello everyone, welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's weekend offering. This is our free broadcast for the public, our Broiler Chicken Show. I want to see whether this is actually streaming on YouTube or not, or whether I messed things up.
This is our free broadcast for the public.
Oh, sounds good.
Chicken Show.
Looks like the audio's okay.
I
I had just a bit of issues there a few minutes ago with the system seeing the microphone that I'm using. But maybe those people, and I don't know, maybe it almost looks like maybe the chat is disabled on YouTube. Wow, really a whole bunch of weird things happening here today. Oh, I have this set to private. Oh. Alright, that's not going to work as a public broadcast. There's public. But I don't know whether this is going to work or not. I may have totally effed this up. Let's see what happens when I do that. Hey, there we go. So at least now it's set to public. So I probably totally messed this up. I don't know whether maybe somebody can pop on over to the YouTube page and just tell me whether this thing's actually working or not. I don't think I've done it correctly, but I don't know. Looks like we're rocking and rolling. So I see there's a few people watching. Hello all, and vid set to private class yesterday. Sorry, now set to public. Hopefully everyone can watch and participate. You can see, of course, how utterly amateur all of this is. My apologies, everyone. But great to see that we have a bunch of people in the Hangout here. So by all means, I'm probably not going to be looking at the chat in the Hangout too much, just because I got too many boxes to follow here. So if you guys want to either post your questions, you people in the Hangout here, in the lounge, I'll keep the lounge window open, and then that way we can, if you want to converse with me, hey Brian, your screen's not working, you can let me know through there. Daniel says the YouTube page is working, so let's do this thing. Frankly speaking, I'm not even quite sure where we should start today. Still, you know, I think on balance we're looking at this entire period here, especially unfortunately for the crypto kids, as our developer cycle, as Alex Sturck once said many moons ago when Bitcoin was facing ripping up. He wished we had a developer cycle, so careful what you wish for, you might just get it good and hard. And we at TRI are trying to take advantage of this developer cycle while the market's still relatively weak, and building out tools and stuff for the site. So I like to have this dashboard, and I think you'll know that TRI is ready to rock the next bull market wherever it might be when this dashboard picture is complete. So our Chief Technology Officer, Seward, is working away diligently on building out the tools, and I think you can basically see we still got a lot of work to do on the site. So we are doing our developer cycle thing. Actually saw some really interesting feedback from some people on the net, and I am liking the idea of maybe us having like a contest for this upcoming school term that should start sometime in September, maybe early October. So by all means, you know, if anything, if you're watching this YouTube video later on and you happen to see me make reference to this and you're interested in the contest, maybe in the comments section of the video page down here, maybe post that you'd like to enter your name into the contest. We'll work on this. You know, it's the dog days of summer right now, middle of August. Things are relatively quiet in the market. But you know, maybe that might be a fun project. Can we still sign up for the classes? Absolutely, right? I think everybody should understand at TRI we take a very relaxed approach to all this. Um, we're not really that rigid. The school terms start when, just sort of like we feel like we're ready to rock this thing. We try to do it on like a trimester basis. So the next school term should start up sometime in September. So, by all means, Ray, if you feel like participating in the program, you're more than welcome. And yeah, okay, I'm a little bit slacking. My apologies. Thank you, Joshua, for posting that. He posted the video link here in the lounge. So thank you, Joshua. I appreciate that. We are sort of working through our developer cycle. We had our big TRI Vancouver meetup just there at the end of July, beginning of August. I thought that went really, really well. And lots of PMA. So watch out for those. We did a bunch of interviews and stuff with various site members. And we're getting pretty positive reviews. I should probably post the review link for anybody who's interested in what we do and sort of the feedback that people give us. I'm not even quite sure how to do this. Let's see if we go to the home page. If you're logged in, it just takes you back to the dashboard. I can't remember. Half the time I need classes from Seward on how to properly use the website. So some really interesting reviews, really good stuff from our users. And actually, even one of our level 3 recent grads actually recommended in his trading community for some people to come on over, and they really enjoyed the program too. So, as I said, I have been asking, I have been asked, and not a bad idea to just sort of get the message out. Maybe we'll do like a contest for a seat in this school classroom. The level 1 program for this fall. That might be a fun treat for everybody. So if you are watching this video and you are interested in the contest, be sure to, of course, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, ring that bell, all those kind of fun Google things. And maybe put down in the comments section that you'd be interested in participating in the contest for a seat in the class coming up. We did just have a level 1 program finish. So usually what I like to do, and anybody who's watched this over the past few months, these broiler chicken shows, a big part of this was simply to dovetail what our level 1 instructor Grim talked about in class today, and then I just do some follow-up if it helped anyone. Since that level 1 class is finished now, and they all wrote their exams, and I'm hearing lots of positive feedback about that, by all means, you over on YouTube, if you have questions, you want me to look at assets, you want me to look at things, I'll be more than happy to give you my 2 cents. Let's try and, make this about an hour long. I get a little crazy sometimes. I rant on forever, so let's try and make this an hour long. I think probably, like I said, what I won't, make any reference specifically to students, but by all means, if there's a student on the lounge page and you have a question, or if you're on the YouTube page and you have a question, feel free to ask. I'll try more than, I'll just try my best to give you what my perspective is and what I see. And if that helps, awesome. If it doesn't, my apologies in advance. Let's see. I've been sort of perusing. I guess there is the page rocking and rolling. So I guess we can put that away now. I also like to just do a little bit of follow-up of sort of rants and tweets I've been putting out through the week to try and put context into some of the things I'm seeing in the market. I guess the last time we did one of these tweets of the Broiler Chicken Show is back there in early August. I think we've done one since then, but no, I guess that's about a week ago. Yeah, so the bigger picture message really hasn't changed a heck of a lot for Bitcoin in particular. I do think that we are basically stuck in this trading range, and we have to, be patient and just wait for this range to resolve. Um, the updated picture of that looks something like this. And it was interesting. I remember last week when I did this free show, I commented about how I liked the fact that the market actually closed above this previous close level. So if we actually change this to like a line chart, what you see are higher highs and higher lows. So that's encouraging. I was worried last week that we might just put in a lower high here on a close basis, and that would be trouble. And based off of this clothesline study, if we just did simple AB equals CD, it looks to me like on a clothesline basis, they really want to take this market up to that 13,000 area, which what I find really interesting about this is that just on a candle wick basis, we did tag that mountain man level, but I know a lot of harmonic people, they would actually like to see a close level there. So I do find it interesting how the market is set up off of that clothesline little study that we did, that it can revisit that level. And I would argue that probably kind of like what we just saw with the CME event, that was this blow off top. From what I'm hearing, and I don't know whether I have the names exactly correct. If I get the name wrong, please forgive me. But the backed people and the Ledger X futures and all that, they're really ramping up, and a lot of people are getting super jazzed about that fundamental driver. And I think to a certain degree that's sort of holding a bid in the market until that fundamental event happens. And then also too, on sort of a side note, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. What is the effect of all the sort of political instability in places like Hong Kong having on something like Bitcoin? It was interesting to see that some people in the crypto community found interviews and stuff with people that were on the ground in Hong Kong. And it's weird, like you go to some parts of the city and it's totally quiet. And it's just business as usual, nothing really going on. Then you go to other parts of the city and it's like massive demonstrations and protests and all that. And the situation appears to be hotting up. So I don't know what Bitcoin's sort of role in all of that is, but I do find it interesting that as that political situation has stayed relatively unstable and uncertain, that Bitcoin itself hasn't broken down per se. We'll say that. I'm still not entirely certain though of the correlation there. So technically speaking, I think you can actually make the argument that not a heck of a lot technically new has happened 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like literally over the past 2 months, 8 weeks. Which of course, people are like, well, this is a trading show, man. I want to see volatility. I want to see, direction. I want to see trades. I want to buy my Lambo. But if anything, I think this is a really good commentary that sometimes the market just, it's telling you not to do anything. And for the investors out there, I think you got one hell of a entry down here at about 4,200, and we've talked lots of students in the past sort of came up with their sort of versions of what the cost of production was. It's interesting how we did bottom right along that 4-year business cycle moving average. But now that we're sitting up in here, this is, in my opinion, this is really like a coin toss. We could very easily consolidate 3 higher lows and bought out here, which takes us up to test the old highs. And that's very realistic. We could M out here and lose 38.2s and have to come back down into reload zones and all that kind of fun stuff and revisit original breakout levels. That's completely realistic too. I was really impressed. One of our and I think he's done the level 3 now. One of our I want to call him an OG, but he's almost there, just not quite. But I was very impressed with how he'd been working with some business partners, and he had a nice buy signal on Bitcoin, and they went and loaded up here, and they had an absolutely fantastic trade. And if I understand correctly, he took profits, and so the account balance looks really good. And he was telling me recently that his business partners are really, really trying to, hey, trade, take a trade. And he was looking at this and going, gee whiz, I just don't have any setups here. And so I was so proud of him. Because in essence, that's very typical, right? The public wants to push the trade, always wants to trade. There's got to be a trade. But I might make the argument, and I know it's kind of boring, and I know a lot of people on YouTube and stuff are like, hey, well, this is, what kind of information is this? Just do nothing. Well, sometimes the market tells you just to do nothing. And I would argue that that's sort of the situation right now. People that did buy the bottom, they got, if you're doing like, banging out doubles, whatever, they got their free position if you're using things like 50% rule, which I think is an excellent sort of, keep you honest level when trading to take profits. They got rewarded. Those people that did have the balls to hang out for things like mountain man levels, that's a bit aggressive because it doesn't always get up that high. But they got handed one hell of a treat. And in essence, since those events, we've just been in a hurry up and do nothing kind of market for investors. Boring. How the hell am I supposed to buy my Lambo with that information, Mr. Beamish? I don't know. But anyway, it is what it is. So Bitcoin, I'd still report that we're sideways. We have not broken down yet. We have not broken out yet. We're just hurry up and consolidating off the higher time frame charts. I suppose one could argue, because we have this fairly well-established trading range over the past couple months, there are opportunities to sneak in and try and buy off the bottom end of the range and sell off the tests at the top end of the range. That would be more of a conversation for like swing traders. I don't mind, talking a bit about that with you guys, but, I need for everybody to understand that that's definitely a different trading plan. That's trading setups. That's identifying where you're going to enter, where you're going to risk to, where you're going to force yourself to take profits. And it's a very different beast than just like the hodler sort of community kind of conversation. Is this a good place for the hodler to come in and start buying Bitcoins? I don't think so. Simply because we know the cost of production is down in this area. What I've often noticed, and I see this happen a lot with Bitcoin, is we lose this sort of conversation about what is value whenever we're trading commodities. And, people get wrapped up and all bullish up here, but they forget about what is value. So I think, we tried to impart this with, we are rational investors. Half of our conversation should be around what is fundamental value, and especially when dealing with something like a cryptocurrency, how do you actually come up with a value of one of these Bitcoins? And that's all a conversation about cost of production. I will say that I am a big believer in the 17.5-year fear and greed cycles, and Bitcoin did really face rip and go absolutely nutso into that event. I was actually doing this for the school program over the weekend. Let's see, I don't know whether I can find it here though or not. But, we do need to understand it. I know a lot of people, they absolutely hate when I do this stuff. Crap, I'm going to have to refresh this. But I wanted to show you guys what the venture capital market has done. Did I save it? I don't think I saved it. Yeah, fudge. Oh well. We can always do up a new chart. And remember, I was a penny stockbroker for a million gazillion years. So if we look at like the Canadian venture market, where the hell is it? Canadian Venture Exchange. Thought I had it in here. This is the way I found it. There it is. You know, I was a stockbroker all through this crazy ass bull market there in venture stocks, and this was Junior Bush's days. This was the building out of the Chinese economy into their Olympics, and you can see literally the moment that they did their Olympic event, that was the end of that bull market. Lots of guys made lots and lots of money trading things like copper names and oil names. The Canadian tar sands was sort of brought into the world through then. But, you know, and it's painful, but I distinctly remember through this event, a lot of the VSE brokers, they basically went out of business and they just folded up shop. When this market, it just kept going and going and going. It just kept going down forever. And I mean, you look at it from the peak of the market to today. I mean, that's like 12 years. A long time. I don't know whether crypto has to follow this kind of path, but you know, I just wanted to post this as this stuff does happen in the market, and like venture capital, things like altcoins and stuff like that. Could we go through a period where, you know, next 5-10 years are pretty quiet in crypto? That could definitely be the case. I'm not saying it is. The one good part about crypto that is very, and especially things like POW coins, the one good thing about crypto that's different than this is, of course, these units. This is a stock index. It doesn't change. The one good thing about Bitcoin, of course, is it has this thing called cost of production. And so as a result, where the hell is it? It's one of these charts. Where did I put my weekly chart? Oh, yeah, here it is. This cost of production, by definition, should imply higher prices down the road, the halvening and all that kind of conversation. But, you know, there are some very basic similarities I think we can take away from this chart. And what you see on that venture exchange, you know, we went up, down, up. And this, of course, if we change that to a line chart, that makes a big M. And you notice that the counter trend rally into Mountain Man level here basically went up and brushed up against that original fail level there. And like we see on the venture exchange, you can see the very well-defined head and shoulders, the brush up against the original breakdown level, and then all hell broke loose on the venture stocks. Now, you know, I don't know whether Bitcoin has to go down and actually forge to new lows like this did. I don't know. Anybody, that's a mug's game, guessing game, really. But you know, a serious test of these lows, I think, is completely natural. But I think just the reason why I wanted to show you this to everybody is that I remember distinctly through this period here, everybody said, well, this can't go on, this can't go on, it can't go on. Well, guess what? It did go on. It does go on. This shit happens in the world. So, you know, just be cognizant of the fact that, you know, and I think I've shown you guys, let's see if I can pull that chart up. The, you know, the gold, Bitcoin, silver, Ethereum comparison. I just have to somehow find it. Where the hell is it? It's in here somewhere. I'm sure people see it and go, it's that one, it's that one. No, a little bit lower, a little bit higher, no, a little bit lower. I thought I had it. Maybe this is it here. I still think that there's a lot of correlation here with this gold market from 1980. And what's cool is hopefully people who see this for the first time go, oh wow, I do see an interesting correlation there. So there was the gold bull, and actually maybe why don't we change this to a weekly chart, so, or maybe even a couple days, so we can see that. And I sure hope people find value in this. I'm just sort of talking away here. Alright, so there is that gold bull from 1980 and the Bitcoin bull. The similarities are quite shocking. And the silver bull and the Ethereum bull. That sort of conversation about venture exchange and how long it took to clean up. You can see, here is the silver top, and what does that following greed cycle look like for commodities? And what's really cool is that I used to actually prospect guys back when I first started in the business back in the early to mid 90s in here. And I used to call up guys and they'd say, I bought my gold at, especially I remember there's one guy in particular. I used to always prospect him, and it was the same thing. I bought my gold at $700 an ounce, and the mid 90s would have been, I guess, in this area here. I bought my gold at $700 an ounce, and I'm not selling until I see that again. The irony of it all is with Bitcoin, of course, it's got the built-in halvening and built-in inflation. I think if you're patient with Bitcoin and you just sit on it for the next few years, by definition, the price will rise. It has to. It has no choice. But it might take some time, right? 10, 15 years in the marketplace is peanuts. So, just be aware of that, right? I think that's... It's maybe I'm the voice of reason, maybe I'm the wet bucket of wet water or whatever you want to call it that I'm throwing on the fire here to try and calm people down. 2-day chart sucks. Let's go back to the weekly. Yeah, so eventually the gold market did actually work up and go substantially higher than those old highs, and my old prospecting guy, he did get paid off, but remember, we had to go through a very long consolidation before that next bull happened. I'm not really making any predictions here. All I'm saying is that the Bitcoin asset itself, I think, served its purpose through the fear asset proxy, sort of the ultimate vote against central banks, the ultimate vote against the fiat currency system. And if anything, what I'm sort of suggesting to people right now is everything that you sort of see on the other side of this face rip move, this is all just a reaction of this big blast off. And actually this speaks to this chart. It's not a bad segue. I might make the argument that usually consolidations, corrections take this sort of triangle pattern, and what usually ends up happening to be able to see the triangle, that's this whole sort of concept of reload zones. If you just throw on things like reload zones on a particular range, if the consolidation is going to look something like a triangle, then what'll end up happening is something along these lines, where the reload zones basically define the sort of the boundaries of the triangle. And that's really, really powerful information. Took me forever to clue into that. I remember a guy I used to trade with, I would say, man, it's incredible how we just keep bouncing between these reload zones, back and forth, back and forth. And he was like, well, okay, so you know what happens when that's done? And I was like, what happens? What happens? And he wouldn't tell me the answer because I think he wanted me to figure it out on my own. But what should end up happening is we just keep bouncing between reload zones. And at some point, the trading range conversation exhausts itself, right? Because really, like we said, this trading range that we're seeing here now is just nothing more than a reaction to this move here. So, it kind of sucks for the crypto community, especially those that are, here to, I want to buy my Lambos kind of stuff. What you have to understand is, first and foremost, is this really a natural move? Is this sustainable? I absolutely know for certain, because Julian and I started this site back here. I know for certain that nobody in the community was calling for 20,000 Bitcoin. I remember we did lots of studies and we sort of figured that the natural extension level off of this, like if we remember we used to do Amanda's Penthouse. I don't know whether you guys even remember those days. Like 400% and those kind of thing. It sort of projected somewhere around, $5,000 a Bitcoin. And I distinctly remember when this happened, nobody was expecting it to go to 20 grand. So this move being unnatural, being not sustainable, it was going to take some time for the market to clean itself up. Now really, because of the built-in halvening, this has, they call it built-in, like the crypto enthusiasts called it built-in deflation. I might call it built-in inflation, but that's just me. I think we can make the argument that Bitcoin price has to rise over time. I do. I still think that at present we're still just going through the very normal cleanup phase of this bull. And actually it was interesting. I had a conversation with one of the students yesterday who happens to be an advisor on another site, and he was saying that he was hearing lots of anecdotal people. They were quitting their jobs. They were going to be full-time crypto traders right in here, and that was a bad sign. Don't want to hear that kind of stuff, because that, in essence, that's the hallmark of top of the market, FOMO, all that kind of stuff. So, with all that said, I think we can, if we were just studying this from purely a Gann perspective, he would just simply say that 50% rules are probably the easiest way for you to sort of keep yourself honest. And, we do have strategies on the site and stuff that try to work with, and I think I said this even earlier, 50% rule is a really sort of keep you honest level. Yeah, you missed a bit more on the upside, but looking back in hindsight, if you liquidated here at 11,000, 12,000 area, I think on balance you should be relatively happy with that. And so just very simply put, I still think we have to trade back down to this 8,500 area here just to satisfy Mr. Gann. We'll see how that goes. As we had sort of pointed out off of that other weekly chart, we're right now battling with 38.2s. So, that's sort of the bigger picture, and I still think, these triangles, the general rule, if you want to write this down, I want something of value from this Beamish guy today. The general rule about triangles and wedges is they usually resolve about 2/3 the apex. So I just simply drew a very simple trend line off of these peaks, and we would call this a potential trend line. It hasn't been validated yet, but it is floating out there, no doubt about it. And really I might argue same thing here with this triangle low. It's not a validated trend line, but it is potential, and I think it defines our trading range here in the short term. And if we think about reload zones, then this makes perfect sense. So if we just simply take a line off of these levels and a line off of these, and that's our sort of triangle consolidation, so that's this sort of green study down below, and then I just simply broke that into thirds. I found this fascinating, that basically the first third seems to be sort of the down, and really interesting how right through this break of the first third of the triangle, the market turned and said, okay, I'm done going down, time to go up. What was interesting too about this was if we do like Gann time studies, if we count the amount of bars that it took for this move to happen, let's see if we go like here, right to there, 52 bars are basically, pretty much 1 year. And then we clone that, and then we ask, okay, well, how long did it take for this rally to occur? And gee whiz, look at that. Basically almost exactly half of that. I mean, just a little bit off, but nonetheless very, very close. So, ironically enough, this market's actually acting in very, very normal fashion. And then I might even say something like, maybe let's change this color to, I don't want to say like this dark green. If we actually clone that again, and we ask, okay, what does that equal distance up to down, then it's not necessarily taking us into the 2/3 apex, but I do like the idea. Really, I might even argue we could do 50% of that, so that was 14 bars, right? So we might even see something along these lines where this 50% rule is hit somewhere right around this area. That would be just absolute textbook GAN. And that makes sense to me too, because I think what we have to do is through a period like this, back and forth. This was Bitcoin dad Garzarello guy, I think his name is Giancarlo, I think his name was, testifying in front of Congress, which just sort of stopped the slide, and then we went into a long trading range consolidation. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get something along those lines again. So, 50% of the time it took for the move to go up, we probably see the move to come back down to 50% rolls. Maybe do something like that. So that puts us sort of somewhere around the middle of September. I am hearing a lot of chatter. There's one guy on Twitter that I like to follow. I don't know whether I have him. I think it's where is he? Of course, when you want to find somebody, you never can. But there's one guy who does a lot of work with GAN and astrological stuff. Of course, I can't find him now. He was putting stuff out earlier, and it's kind of funny how somebody was asking John Bollinger, why don't you use Twitter anymore? And he's like, this new user interface sucks. So I'm not really using it. I think this guy, this Crypto Damas, I think this is the guy. I really like his analysis. I think this guy's he's an interesting take, and so he's actually looking for correction into September, and that sort of corresponds with this sort of simple GAN thinking, where 1 year, half a year, then half of that to take us 50%. So I'd be looking for sort of somewhere in September here for this 8,500 level to be hit. We'll see how it goes. Only time will tell. Until this 38.2 has been resolved, though, I mean, I really don't, I'm not like calling a bear here. But if WD GAN played out sort of as he normally expects, that's what we should be expecting. And then probably 50% bounce back up, and then our ultimate resolution here. So my comment with regard to the sort of 2/3 the apex, I think that we had sort of 1/3 was just face rip down, right? Just the normal reaction off of that high. Then the second third of this is like up, down, and what ends up happening is this second third sort of it plays ping pong in the reload zones, but it turns out to be almost like a zero-sum game. And then once we hit 2/3 the apex of this triangle, all hell breaks loose, because usually the general rule is we want to see a breakout 2/3 the apex. So if I just simply, and I don't know if I've just taken this price action and just replicated it. I don't know whether it looks like this or not. Nobody really knows for certain what the future is going to hold. But, just as a simple roadmap, I've thrown this on here. That would take us down to 78.6s, which I kind of like. It would also bring us back and maybe flirt with this trend line to a certain degree here. And then at 2/3 the apex, we start to talk about, okay, and this is what I'm trying to get to. It's taking me forever to get here. But as I had started this conversation off, all of this price action that you see in here, I think that this is nothing more than a reaction of this big honkin' move. And all of the stories, especially, things like altcoins getting washed out and, the regulators crapping all over the various exchanges, KYCs and all that stuff, that is all playing out as we're sort of reacting against this big move. But once we hit this 2/3 apex, and I do find it interesting that 2/3 the apex, right, this happens to correspond quite nicely, we start changing the conversation. The people, of course, that got sucked into the buy side here, they've probably been long gone. And one thing that I found fascinating about Bitcoin is that it's almost like every single year there's a whole new generation of people. And I always think, okay, well, this is it. There aren't going to be any more new people. And every single year there's a whole new wave of people that come into the market. And so, gee whiz, maybe we do get a consolidation here. One more face rip down, which breaks all of the sort of people that bought in here, breaks their hearts. People lose interest in Bitcoin, all that. But the conversation will shift. It will actually start turning to, we sort of made the argument off of this chart that cost of production is, where the hell is that damn chart? Sorry. Cost of production sitting at about $2,000-3,000. So what a surprise! Price bottomed off at 3,000. Does the cost of production now jump to like 5,000-6,000, right? And if that's the case, right, and people start making that argument, then really that implies that we could see a base here around 5,000. And people are going to start ramping this up on the anticipation that the new cost of production is basically these levels. And, I thought it was really interesting. I put out a tweet recently to the effect that even Satoshi himself said that assets like cryptocurrencies follow very similar business model to commodities. This isn't just a Brian thing. I mean, hell, if you believe in Bitcoin, Satoshi himself even said this, that prices generally gravitate towards cost of production. Then we get these kind of halvening events, which is a big fundamental, and it gets a lot of people interested. It's a news story, and price ratchets away from that cost of production because, on this sort of halvening event, the public is now interested, the rah, and price often gets bid up into those events. And we just saw this on Litecoin. Ironically enough, it's almost like a carbon copy of what happened that last cycle. So, here was Litecoin's halvening rally. And I mean, what the heck, eh? Off at $20-30 a coin, rallied all the way up to $146. I mean, that's what, about 5, 6, 7, 8 fold, 5-fold, somewhere in there. And then following that event, and the bid up, buy the rumor, then the actual halvening event comes out, which I think is over here. It becomes a sell the news. That's the kind of scenario that I'm thinking we see here on Bitcoin for next year. So, for the investors out there, I'm not overly impressed with this level. I would ideally like, for investment purposes, I'd like to see this come down and play with this trend line and us get back into that sort of, are we buying value? That's really my perspective of, like the investor side of the equation. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. I hope that makes sense. I do like this roadmap, and I think I'll probably be talking about it for a little while now. One sort of sort of floating out there. What is this going to have an effect? Very rarely. It only happens about once every 20 years or so. Actually, I'm surprised this guy hasn't talked a little bit about it. But I talk about it with our site people a lot. But we have what only happens about once every 20 years. Jupiter and Saturn are crossing paths. And you might go, oh, gee whiz, what's kind of nonsense, fluff, blah, blah, blah. But I do find it fascinating that if you actually look back in world history, a lot of really interesting key pivots happen around this event. Just from I guess like a physiological perspective, having both of these massive bodies in, close proximity, and of course, think of like gravitational waves and that kind of stuff. This will create sort of an imbalance, like if all the planets are randomly distributed through the solar system, you almost get like a balancing effect. Whereas this would almost be like, like the plate is like tilted to one side. I don't know exactly what the hell's going to happen through here, but the interesting thing, we were just looking at gold. This event basically was the last time we had, 2 cycles ago, but last fear cycle event was basically 1980-81. That was a Jupiter-Saturn cross. So it just goes to show that, gee whiz, some pretty big things happen in the market. And the irony of it all is that the last time Jupiter and Saturn crossed happened to be through a fear cycle. And that's basically when the NASDAQ went and did its insano move right through here, right through there. That was also a Jupiter-Saturn cross. And like I said, about every 20 years this kicks in. So, this was that fears or the greed cycle peak. And then 20 years ago, and this was the fear cycle peak 40 years ago. Jeez, can you believe it's 40 bloody years? Man. So, call me crazy, and I don't mind if you do, but I definitely believe something's in the works for October 2020. And it's interesting how we talk about they don't call it the fall for nothing, all that kind of stuff. Something big is in the works for October 2020. Get ready, Does that mean stock markets crash? I don't know. Does it mean that Bitcoin goes parabolic and all of the Bitcoin hodlers looking for 100 grand, 200 grand on Bitcoin? Does that happen? Maybe. But I definitely know there's something big is going to happen in world history on this event. So that's sort of why I've put this Jupiter-Saturn cross reference here. I honestly don't know what's going to happen. I mean, only time will tell. But it is something I'm going to be watching as sort of a catalyst. And this is sort of like an unsettling, right? Think of the way that gold acted in its in the Jupiter-Saturn cross from 1980. Things can get really screwy. And of course, we have very questionable political leadership in the world right now. A lot of uncertainty around, sort of what is our path? Are we heading toward dictatorships around the world? Are we still going to live in this world of democracy and freedom of speech? I actually heard somebody recently say that in our country, we've decided that freedom of speech is a bad thing. And I was like, what? You got to be kidding me. And there are some countries in the world where, you do not have freedom of speech anymore. It doesn't exist. I don't know. Maybe this is a very large transition. Something big is coming down the pike. So, and I'll be talking about this over the next year or two. Brian, I'm not going anywhere. I've been doing this for 30 years. I'll be probably doing this for another 30 years. But, I have this reference on here, and I don't know what happens. Maybe we rally into that happening event, then pull back just like we saw with Litecoin, and then all fucking hell breaks loose over here. So we'll keep an eye on it. For the time being, though, I really do like the idea that this consolidation in Bitcoin will probably finish somewhere around, I guess this is showing April of 2020. So we still got another good, probably, what is this? Probably another 6, 8 months, 9 months of shit ahead of us. But once this 2/3 apex resolves itself, then I'll be looking for the fireworks in Bitcoin. And I do get the impression that by the time that rolls around, most of the Trex nonsense will be done. The regulators, it will be an old story of them shitting on ICOs and all that kind of stuff, right? We don't even hear any talk of ICOs anymore. I hear lots of IEOs, initial exchange offerings now. But as I said before, while we're going through this process and to get to that 2/3 apex, we're still really just, all we're doing right now is just cleaning up this big bull run. So kind of an interesting conversation with you guys today. I'm not quite sure why I went down this road, but I did. There you go. And probably I'm going to get a bunch of thumbs down and you suck, Brian. But hey, it's what's on my mind. This is my show. I get to talk about what's on my mind. V over here says, do you have any source to check that 3K was the cost of production? Not really. I'm just going to simply say, interestingly enough, I'm pretty good at helping people build trading plans, try to give you a framework of how sort of professionals manage their money in the market, risk management techniques. I'll teach you a number of different strategies that you yourself can employ. What does a trade, a good trade setup look like in the market? 3 reasons, what are those reasons? How do they look? How do they develop? What are good profit risk reward ratios to follow if you're thinking about trading? That's my specialty. And if anything, and I hate to sound like sort of passing the buck, but I would make the argument that I'm not a Bitcoin and crypto specialist, with regard to things like cost of production. And what I actually do is I actually like to mine our community, because you guys are the smart ones when it comes to this. And so this study that I put together that I showed you earlier, and I've had it on the screen now for quite a while, if I can find the screen. This was put forth by one of our students back in early June. And he came up with this formula. I'm not endorsing it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. But I have to say, it's not a bad ballpark. And then if we actually look at what actually happened in the marketplace, as Satoshi said, price will gravitate towards that cost of production. I do see a lot of sort of correlation here. But by all means, V, if you have a better model to try and figure out what cost of production is, I'm all ears. I'll be more than happy to listen to you. Reza says hardware plus electricity plus overheads equals cost of production. Keep in mind that Bitcoin and Satoshi included this thing called difficulty, which is sort of like the floating variable in all of this. So I do understand from a difficulty perspective, that number is kind of difficult to figure out sometimes. No pun intended. I think, on balance, there are some really great sort of little internal tools, and I sort of showed you guys this before, that we like to use to sort of measure things like quantitative analysis. And I think, I don't know whether it was one of the free intro week sort of summary videos or whether it was a Broiler Chicken Show. We talked about using things like forward spreads to measure sentiment. And what are the actual miners, if they're going to use these products to hedge production, what are they thinking in the marketplace right now? Are forwards getting bid up relative to the cash market? Are they getting discounted? That's sort of contango versus backwardization. Um, that's a different conversation altogether. But I really like this network value study, and I think on balance, we were flashing some pretty nasty warning signals with this net NVT study. This is again sort of another conversation about what is value in Bitcoin. And if we're trading up where this indicator is flashing red signals here, we're nowhere near value. It's, if anything, it's good. It's healthy to see that this is starting to clean up. But for us to actually go, yeah, this is the bottom, get ready to rock and roll, well, what we want to start seeing is like W's. And ideally, we'd like to see the trend lines, or markets moving above trend line. So right now, you can clearly see, hopefully everybody can see, we got a pretty well-defined head and shoulders there. So to me, what this says, and now we're below the moving average. So on top of the fact that we're seeing, M's in the indicators, and we're below moving averages now, this is a nice handy little sort of, again, sort of thinking along those lines of cost of production and when's a good time for investors to actually step in and invest in Bitcoins. This indicator right here is saying it ain't now. It's just that simple. So I think this is a good dovetail to that sort of kind of conversation about what is value. You can think of things like cost of production. You can think of things of sort of what the network, value is in the marketplace. You put the two together, and I think you're starting to get serious kick-ass analysis tools. So I might suggest to the community, especially people watching this, here's another little tidbit for you. See if you can grab this NVT study off of TradingView. I know quite a few people on the internet, YouTube videos and stuff like that have done a lot of work with this study. So, maybe Google that a little bit and do some work on that. But this is just yet another sort of little value tool that is clearly saying, cool your jets. Not a bad little, actually, that's actually, in my opinion, I think a really good dovetail to that investor conversation about crypto. I suppose we could take just a couple or maybe a few minutes and look at the intermediates. Oh yeah, okay. Why don't we do the intermediates and then we'll pop on over to things like the Schult coins and take a quick boo at them. But I'm not seeing a hell of a lot out of them. And as long, for whatever it's worth, if you're following along, Trex and Poloniex just came out with another big list of delistings that they're planning on doing. I don't think that this altcoin winter is over by a long shot yet. As I had said before, my hunch is, for whatever hunches are worth, is we probably don't see the end of this crypto winter until again, sort of the spring of next year. That wouldn't surprise me. But just looking at the intermediate ones, like I said, Bitcoin itself has not broken down. But if we look at things like Ethereum, and what kind of bums me out about Ethereum is that, I remember Da Vinci and I did some videos back in the spring, and we said, gee whiz, it sure looks like there's a lot of money to be made on this Ethereum, and yet there is just 38.2 of its entire range. You can see how this thing just has not performed here. Very disappointed. It has come back down into a reload zone, and I guess what bothers me here over the short term, and I don't know, I think I did this with you guys, but I'm not positive, but you can see when we sort of lost this nice little empire top here, dumped, we came down into the moving averages, and we were stuck in this moving average sandwich for the past few weeks. It looks to me like we're still stuck in the moving average sandwich. They tried to probe higher, the market couldn't accept above the 13 EMA on the weeklies and came back down. And then now we've tried to probe lower, and our good old buddy Mountain Man stepped in here and said, nah, I don't think so. So it is, I suppose, slightly encouraging that Mountain Man came in here, and probably that, you know, he and all those kind of day trader, swing trader kind of guys probably were fishing for longs down in this area. I guess as it stands right now, and of course today's Sunday, it's the beginning of the day, anything can happen by the end of this. But it looks to me like we're still sort of trapped in this moving average sandwich here. But, you know, I think the really important point is that we lost this key low here just recently. And, you know, that when we lose these key lows, that in itself paints this AB equals CD, which unfortunately is actually suggesting that we probably have to go down and play with these original lows down here. You know, there's an old adage, buy when it snows, sell when it goes. You can sort of see that logic. I've seen that happen repeatedly with Ethereum, where, you know, you want to sort of target into the end of the year if you want to buy this thing, and then, you know, the spring, buy when it snows, sell when it goes. And in Canada, the snow, in some places in Canada, it doesn't leave until May, June, which is just brutal. But, you know, basically that logic, that seasonal play played out. Now, unfortunately, we're on the other side of that seasonality trade. And I don't hear anything out of Mr. Vitalik of late. I mean, if you want to post in the comments here, you know, what is going on with Ethereum Nation? You know, ICOs are still definitely on the outs. So I don't see any sort of new business there. I heard that Russia now is creating their own cryptocurrency. Is Mr. Vitalik wrapped up in that, and he's not even interested in Ethereum anymore? I don't know. But anyway you shake it, there's just no reason for me to step in on the long side here on this thing. And if anything, I'm worried that we probably have to come down and probe value low down here before all this is said and done. If we pop on over to the other boy, and really I would make the argument that half of the reason why crypto rallied at all here was because of this Litecoin halving event. And the exact same thing happened the previous cycle, where you know, Bitcoin was heading down, Bitcoin was in the bottom end of its range, Litecoin started to have its halving event rally. There was a big Chinese Ponzi scheme at the time, and so Litecoin prices went absolutely nuts. But that, in essence, sort of broke the back of the bear. And I might argue to a certain degree that may actually be sort of the same thing that's happened this cycle. I don't know what it is about these stamp charts. They don't really go back that far on Litecoin. But, you know, that last Litecoin event, what I'm talking about in particular, was Bitcoin was bumping along here, and I think it was through this event here was the Litecoin halving event, which ultimately put in that little double bottom and sort of set the stage for our next big bull market. So, you know, there was July 2015. That was the Litecoin halving. Let's see if I can do that just quickly. Does somebody have an exchange where Litecoin's actually been around? I guess probably Phoenix or something would probably see it down here. All right, so at least Litecoin was here then. If I go up, 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 and we'll go like that. And we'll go, maybe change this to candle chart. All right, so yeah, so this was, and it's not really that good of a chart, sorry everyone, but this was that last Litecoin halving event rally. Nice double bottom, a big rally. Like I said, there was big Chinese Ponzi scheme. You can see what happened on the other side of that halving event, and this is what I would expect out of Litecoin. I think actually the halving was like this candle here, but there was a big Chinese Ponzi scheme which sort of took price a little too far, too fast. But in essence, on the other side of that halving, we had to come back down. But if we look at Bitcoin itself, right, That was the Litecoin halving event rally. It broke out through here. We're seeing, of course, a lot of that similarity now. And then on the other side of that halving, there had to be a pullback against these original lows, both on Litecoin itself and on Bitcoin. And then this was the second U.S. Marshal Office's auctioning of Bitcoins, which I think was sort of the catalyst that started this big rally. So, it might be interesting to actually do sort of like a candle count. Litecoin halving rally, and then when did Bitcoin actually take off? It was 17 weeks later. So I don't know whether that correlates with what we're seeing right now. But there is sort of your Litecoin halving event rally. 17 weeks later, sort of put us somewhere around there. And that is 21st of October, which I guess to a certain degree actually kind of lines up with this kind of, well, not really. That would, I guess, be in this area here. I don't know whether we can actually correct that quickly. We'll see how it goes. All right, so where was I going with all of this? I wanted to sort of just paint, previous cycle. What did that Litecoin halving rally look like? Whoops, sorry. That was over here. And what did the other side of it look like? And that's kind of what I'm thinking for the market now. So let's put all this stuff away. What have I done? Totally messed this up now. So, Litecoin halving event rally, pullback, actual halving, and I'm not exactly sure when the exact date of the Litecoin halving. If somebody wants to actually post that as a comment, totally cool. But I could very easily see, again, this is just like Ethereum. You can see Litecoin hasn't had as big of a bounce back here in the short term, but you can see there is that key low. We broke it, so I'm thinking AB equals CDs, take us right back down to the original bottom end of the range. And if we go boobity boop, simple trend lines, probably going to flirt with this trend line in here for a while. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this double bottom is almost like 88.6. Or maybe the AB equals CD lines up with 88.6. Where is my 88.6? There it is. Yeah, so interesting how this AB equals CD lines up really nicely with 35.86. Well, so let's call it 36 bucks. Probably also too. What do I want to do here? I want to go like this. Extensions. Boom. But I want to go the other direction. All right. Yeah. Okay, so now this is starting to look pretty solid. So we've got 88.6. We've got basically the POC, or the point of control. We've got AB equals CDs, and we've got 1.618, or the golden ratio. And in essence, just basically checking the original bottom. There might even be a cheeky little gap right in there that could use some filling. So, bottom line here is, and it sucks for the crypto community. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. The altcoin market, even if we look at the bigger altcoin markets, they still look like poop. Really, really nice rally. I sure hope, some of you had the opportunity to take advantage of this. Great trade, but that trade is now unwound. And it looks like we're back into correction mode here. Also, really good conversation about value. Quite often what should end up happening is the market should dump into the top of value. And then just simply ask itself, because this is in essence, this move up here, is the market asking, well, do we want to be in value or do we want to accept higher? So in this particular case, they accepted higher. We've come back down to the value high. Technically speaking, if we accept back into value, then 80% of the time we should come down and play against value low here. So not only do we have an acceptance back into value here, we've got some pretty good harmonic and Fibonacci levels to work with, and this harmonic here, this AB equals CD. So, like I said just a moment ago, altcoins still on the outs. I'm just not overly impressed with them, and really they won't bottom until they actually bottom. If we look at the various different alt indexes, and it was really cool. Somebody on the site actually found a website that actually has like well, I'll just say it, a shitcoin index, for lack of a better term. But that's what they even named it. So I don't know whether you can even call it a swear word. We do have the site in our library. These guys, and they actually even have an index that they call the shitcoin index. And as long as this thing is making lower highs and lower lows, then I have to be concerned. I am encouraged. This is a good sign. Hopefully everybody looking at this on a daily basis, you can see a nice little fractal here. So boom, boom, boom. If we get a trade above this level right there, that becomes a buy signal. So that's great to see. I'm not. Is it Ethereum itself? On the site we have lots of guys trading these altcoins. I haven't been that active in this space probably for the past year or so. Bought a couple names. One of them got busted out through the bottom. We talked about it. Somebody asked me about this BitTorrent, and I said, well, it's not a bad idea taking a shot against the lows. You can see how it crapped out and lost those lows, so that trade idea failed. I do find it fascinating that our good old buddy Doge here came right back down against the bottom end of the range, did not trigger stop or breakdown levels for me. And then if we actually change this to a line chart, you can see, well, the thing's trying desperately to put in a W here on a clothesline, trying to hold those, trying to hold this tail low here. So Doge is just right on the fence. And really, I might even argue that if Bitcoin tops out and starts working its way lower, maybe that's a reason why these alts can come back a bit. It's not a bad trade, especially for those that are trading shalt coins, to just step in here. Kevin, he stepped in at 29, which is a much better level than mine. I bought up here at like 31, 32. So I was really impressed with Kevin's trade. And on balance, he's sitting off like 3 ticks. I'm sitting off like 6 ticks. But it's not even such a bad idea to take a shot down in here and just, if we lose this tail low, just walk away from the trade. Came really close to testing my resolve, but just said, nope, not quite ready to break down just yet. So, it might be interesting for us to actually go in and look at the components of this Schult index and see who's actually rallying here. And for fun, why don't we pull up? I like to follow the markets based on my moving average system. In essence, this is just nothing more than the weekly chart, 13 EMA, 30 SMA. And you can see all of the rallies off of the winter lows. The names like Cripple actually came down and even broke this bottom here. A lot of these names are trying to hold their lows. Dash looks really interesting down in here. Let's see. Yep. This EOS coming right down into reload zones. You might want to keep an eye on him. It's interesting to see Stellar lost its lows. Tron's trying desperately to hold its lows. And I do remember on the site we were talking about this one through the summer. Interesting little setup here off of lower time frames and move stop to trailing level. So, those people that did trade this bot on the Tron at least took a little bit of profit. But I don't see any leadership out of this list that's causing that shitcoin market to rally. Let's see if we'll pull up Joshua's fundamental list. Let's see if we got anything moving over here. Well, a lot of this stuff just looks like poop. So somebody asked me to take a look at Zcash. Actually, that might be an interesting ratio. EKZOTIC. Bear shit divided by bullshit equals a rating. I don't know. BCH is taking off. Somebody's telling me BCH is rocking and rolling. I'm worried about BCH right now. Like, no, BCH is a Roger Ver's coin, right? It's BSV. That's Dr. Wright's coin, right? Be interesting to see what it looks like. But even looking off of this, like ZRX, you can see lost its lows, flashed a bear signal here a while ago. There's Zcash, ZEC. What was the one you guys asked me to look at? Zcash. So Ali Asharki. I don't know. I'm probably totally butchering your name. Sorry, sir. Is this the one that you wanted me to take a look at? It's not a terrible idea to come in here and be hunting against the low end of the range here. Technically, moving averages are still bullish, so it totally hasn't lost its lunch. Interesting how we've come right down against the original double bottom, kind of like what I'm thinking about out of Litecoin. I think you probably got to cool your jets here if you're thinking about like new money being put at this. At the very least, what I'd like to see for me to get like super jazzed, and I kind of showed you on that Schultz index, is I'd like to see some sort of signs of fractal. So give me some sort of bottom or something to work with here. Maybe we'll make it super wide so you can see that. Right? If we could have a bar that puts in a higher weekly bar than this low, and then the next week we come out and we actually trade up through this high, then that actually paints a fractal, right? Boom, boom, boom. A nice inside bar buy signal. So it's interesting how we see that on this Schultz index, right? That's what this was. I don't know whether you can see that or not. Ali, can you see? It might be tough to see, but can you see how this candle here made a low, this candle made a lower low, then this candle here actually makes a higher low? So these three bars here, if we can close back above this level here, that creates a fractal. I don't know whether you've ever seen that before or not, but that's a pretty powerful market reversal signal. So for your ZEC, if we want to see sort of the same thing, we want to see, stop making lower lows. That's absolutely number one. Stop making lower lows. Paint some sort of inside bar. And then the following week, if this thing actually is a bull and we go up through whatever this inside bar level is, then that becomes a buy signal. So Ali, does that help you? I hope so. So really nothing for me to get too excited about here. You can see, boom, 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 tried to fractal out there. Here's a really good one, boom, 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 fractal there. That one worked really well. Boom, 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 fractal there. Look at this fractal, boom, 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 fractal there. So I would say you're a bit early, but, just keep your eyes peeled and wait for this kind of sign of a turn. And then ideally what we really want to see is, the fractal is sort of the beginning, right? You can make an argument that that was a fractal there, signal. But what we really want to see on the other side of the fractal is we want to see the fractal signal fire, then come down and make like a W, and then away we go. That's what you really want to see if you're a bull. So the fact that we've made a new low here, there's no bottom here yet. We could fractal out, which would be sort of the start, the makings of a bottom. But ideally, we'd love to see down, up, down, test this low, try not to break it, and then turn back up. And then that move will tell you that this thing's a new bull market. So it's going to be a while. I can see on YouTube, I don't know where you're looking, Sarah, but I can see on YouTube all the funny drawings I'm doing on this chart. Can anybody else on YouTube, can you see this, right? If I place a happy face. Everybody, I should see that on YouTube come up shortly here. And there's the happy face. So it looks like it's showing on YouTube that that I'm on the yep, YB is fine. Okay, fine. So Ali, does that help you? You asked me to look at this. Does that help you at all? Does it at least? I mean, it's probably not the message you want to hear, but does that at least help you a little bit what to look for going forward? Looks like we lost Ali. All right, well, I tried. I suppose the one saving grace about all of this is at least now you're not walking into a trap, right? Alex says, hey, Brian, are you trying to hunt the second higher low or just wait the confirmation of trend going up and the W formation to show clearly? To be honest with you, I do like the fact that this bottom is in place. So that's good, right? And I was just about to say a moment ago, we could make the argument that, back into reload zones, not a bad idea that we start hunting. I think because of the overall tone of the market, right, and this really speaks to market state, this is kind of like I'm from Missouri, right? Show me that you are a bull before I start getting really too excited. So in this kind of market state, I want to see some sort of anecdotal evidence that this thing has bottomed. When we were in sort of the 2014 to 2017 kind of bull market, the weekly trends on all this stuff were still pointing up. Everything was rocking and rolling. So blindly buying reload zones and stuff like that, it worked. But I think in this kind of market state, I think you have to say, look, it really prove to me that you are a bull. And ironically enough, just like Bitcoin, you could make the argument. Where's that higher time frame chart? I think you could make the argument that 78.6 on Bitcoin was sort of the ultimate tell. Right, so we did this off of this high back to these lows, and 78.6, it lost it, but look how ultimately the market resolved 78.6. I'm still a bull, rah rah rah. So on your ZEC here, this Z cash, notice how 78.6, we lost it, but just even me eyeballing this fractal, look how close that fractal level and that 78.6 are. If this thing really is a bull, my hunch is it's going to play out something like this. And what's really cool is we have some people on the site, including my business partner, Julian, who is like, you know what, I'm all about just hunting really, really low risk windows where I can take a trade. I know exactly where I'm going to be proved wrong. And can I sneak in there and buy that level, and my risk is really, really small relative to the potential reward. So, I'm not saying this thing's going to new highs, but we definitely have a bottom here. And you could just make the argument that, hey, I'm going to risk, somebody came in here and said, no more down, you go up. No more down, you go up. No more down, you go up. Somebody sees value on this name at these levels. So if I'm going to take a shot in the market, and this is where most of the public gets screwed, because they come in and they buy up here, but they don't realize that the bottom of the market is actually down here. So, I really like Julian's approach in that he says, well, if I can somehow sneak in down in here, let's say you just went and bought this today. If I can just sneak in, and I'm going to risk to where previously the market, whoever it was, it must have been some whale or some big player that just said, I see value in here. Anytime anybody in the public is going to be selling, I'm going to be buying up those coins, and I'm going to stop this bear run. And then, the actual W itself is your anecdote that, yep, this thing stopped going down, now get ready to start going up. So if I can just force myself to step in and take this trade, and I don't know what's going to happen, but this is now my risk window, that's a pretty winning strategy. And, if we just simply say, I'm not even going to shoot for new highs. I'm just going to say, what's a 50% retracement? WD GAN, remember I showed you all that about Bitcoin earlier. And I'm going to use that as my target. Well, you can see that paints now a, 3.72 risk reward. And that's the hallmark of a really good trader, is they just simply identify windows where I will know that I am wrong and that this trade is a dud if we break these levels where the bulls previously stopped the bear run. If they believe the same fundamental logic of why they thought there was value in here, why this market had to stop going down here, if that's still the case, then that means that when we dip into these levels, they're going to step in again. They're going to say, no, this is value. I'm a buyer here. I don't know whether this is going to hold or not, but at least now I've got a level where if we go through these levels, we know for certain that whoever the big guy was that stopped the bear before, he's been disproved. So, in a weird sort of way, and we used to always say this at our old prop firm, this is a business of being uncomfortable. You don't really know what the hell's going to happen in the future. Nobody does. And I love listening to all these people that are prognosticate Bitcoin's going to 100 grand, whatever. I mean, really, nobody knows what the hell's going to happen in the future. But if I'm going to step into the marketplace and take a risk, is there any way that I can sort of clearly identify a risk window where if I'm wrong, I can get out and limit my loss? But if I'm right, I get paid substantially more than if I was wrong. In this case, like I said, you're going to get paid $3.72 versus the dollar of risk that you're going to take, if indeed this is the bottom. And I think we showed this actually last spring on, I think it was Cripple, if I'm not mistaken. I remember distinctly, it was right in here. I remember distinctly it was in the spring, April, May. We had sort of the same sort of situation where the market had come down. It was flirting with kilos. And remember I had said, Ali, just a few minutes ago, that inside bar, that fractal. But I distinctly remember on Broiler Chicken Shows and daily briefs and stuff saying, if I'm a risk taker, I actually should be like stepping in and just simply buying against the bottom end of this range. Oh, there's a call coming in. Hold on a second. Hello? Speaking. Is this ICBC survey? You caught me at another bad time. I'm right in the middle of a show. I'll have to be another time. Bye now. The bureaucrats are calling me to try and do a survey. Adorable. Anyway, so here's another one of those situations. Now, here is a really good anecdote of that inside bar, that fractal that I would love to see, and we were looking at one coin in particular. I guess it was the ZEC. I'd just like to see a little bit more anecdotal evidence that this is the bottom, but I can completely understand traders coming in here and just simply saying, look, we've come against this original low. I'll take my shot down here, and I'm just going to simply risk against the bottom. That's totally, I understand that, but like I would call this trade location. Ideally, and what I sort of teach in my school program, especially for new people to trading, is, risking your hard-earned money in the marketplace. This is a very, very high anxiety trade. You just don't know. And like I said, at the prop firm, like real professional traders, we used to have the expression, you are paid to worry. And the more uncomfortable you are about a trade idea, probably the higher the odds that it's going to work. So, I can completely understand veteran traders coming in and just saying, you know what, there is the original bottom. I'm just going to simply buy against this, but I have no idea if this is going to hold. I do like the idea that we try and set ourselves up with 3 reasons for a trade. I do like, I think this is probably 88.6. Let's flip this around. Yeah. So we're down into the area where, statistically you are buying against the bottom end of the range. And we used to like to call this like Ian on our site. He loved the shark setup that we used to trade, which is tags as 78.6s. But he liked to use 88.6s. Well, in this particular case, even Ian's underwater here a bit. But I think you can make the argument that we definitely have location. This is, I don't know whether you YouTube audience have seen this before, but, like I said, in the school program, I really like the idea of having 3 reasons to justify trade. And let's see if you YouTubers actually know how this cadence goes. What is reason number 1? And we'll give you a hint, and we'll tell you that it is the most important word in all real estate transactions. In fact, you ask a real estate person, what are the 3 most important words in real estate? And it's this word repeated 3 times. Well, Ray says setup. So if anything, what we're doing here, Ray, is now we're building out what does the setup actually look like. And that's the 3 reasons for a trade. So does anybody know over on YouTube, and I'm sure all you OGers here in the lounge, you all know this, and you better know this. Yeah, they're not really talking too much because I told them I would put the chat away in here. But maybe pop on over to the YouTube page and help these people because nobody's answering this question, which is a bit scary. But if we were going to have 3 reasons for a trade, and it looks like we lost Colleen. I wonder where Colleen is. Well, too bad she's not here today. But what is... hey, there you go. Thank you, Eric, right? So absolutely reason number 1 always should be, if you're thinking about taking a trade, location. And here is an excellent anecdote of why the public always loses money playing this game. Because everybody and their brother was bullish up in here, right? And the irony of it all, if you've watched any of my videos over the years, we would take this tool and we would go here to here, the last most recent significant pivot high, and we would say, well, actually that right there is a short trade location, reload zones. Look at that, eh? And the irony of it all is that, just middle of June, middle of July, everybody was like, all alter back and all that kind of nonsense. And, crypto's going to the moon. I told you, like one site member said that he participates in another community. People were quitting their jobs and going, I'm a full-time crypto trader. Oh, God, faceplant, right? So, everybody and their brother and the public, of course, comes in on the long side here, and that's a potion for disaster. That's horrible trade location. Try and learn this stuff, these reload zones, and at least now with this reload zone concept, you can start to think about, okay, what is a good trade location? And our general rule is, especially for things like little old ladies and stuff, is you are not allowed to buy unless we are at or below a reload zone. So you can see that now we are below reload zone. Great. We've got reason number one, right? We can go reason number one. If I can find a little thing, there it is. We can go check. We have got reason number one. We have trade location. Okay, who can tell me what the second reason we ideally want to hunt for to justify taking a risk in the marketplace? And, you know, for whatever it's worth, in real estate, you ask the real estate people, what are the three reasons for a trade in real estate? They go location, location, location. So what's reason number two? And there, you know, this is what I teach in the school program. All right, not bad. Data Kills, interesting name, says momentum. The problem with momentum is that there are many different types of momentum, so we have to be a little bit more specific when we say momentum. You can have price momentum, you can have volume momentum. I've been actually studying a lot recently lately of volatility momentum. But really what I'm looking for here is I want indicator confirmation. And ideally, the absolute ideal scenario is we want what's called a divergence. In essence, the indicator that you're using is actually suggesting price is a lot stronger than what price would lead you to believe. And if we use probably crypto from back in the spring is probably a really good example. Our good old Litecoin scenario. If we pull up the chart, hopefully everybody remembers this from back in the winter. Actually, Bitcoin, it was really, really good. And of course, keep in mind, weekly charts and weekly signals always carry way more weight. But hopefully everybody can see. And I remember when this MACD divergence came in, all of the Twitter people that are TRIOGers, and I can think of one gentleman in particular, Jonathan, everybody just went absolutely nuts here. So this was such a really good example of sort of indicator confirmation. I like to use these tools in conjunction. This is my overbought, oversold indicator. Clearly the market was flashing oversold, and this is my momentum. This is pure raw price momentum. And at this point right here, right where we went through these highs, right there, we actually have confirmation of that concept of divergence, where price was making lower lows, but the indicator itself was making higher lows. So reason number two should be something along the lines, we want to see some internal anecdotal evidence that the market is actually stronger than what you're seeing. So, you know, if we pull up something as simple as, like, I don't know, what's a popular indicator these days? How about MACD? I like MACD because it tells me price momentum, like sort of the raw push. Do we have any signs of divergence here? And to make it even easier to see that divergence, I actually like to put away the MACD study itself and just look at the histogram. So we'll put that away and we'll put that away. And you can see we made a higher high. This looks like it was a higher high. And then we've just come off like just falling off a cliff here. So I don't see any signs of divergence. I think you can make a pretty good argument that the original bottom that was put in here, you can see lower lows. And yet, if we look at the MACD histogram, we were making higher lows. There is a good example of divergence. And this divergence was confirmed basically on this little pop-up here. So at this point, like right in here, we can make the argument that the market is giving you internal signs that it is stronger than what price would lead you to believe. Lower lows, higher lows. So this divergence in particular, it's kind of hard to see, sorry. This divergence was confirmed right in here. And then finally, so, you know, hopefully you can see indicator divergence confirmation. Um, Back here, the market was saying, hey, you know what? Price is actually a lot stronger than what price is telling you here. As it stands right at the moment, do we have any signs of divergence here whatsoever? And the answer is an unequivocal no. So, I like to frame our trades, 3 reasons for a trade. Yes, we have location, but we stop at reason number 2. There is no indicator confirmation of a turn here yet. The third reasons for a trade, once we have location and we have indicator confirmation, i.e. divergence in the charts, then we can finally look for market structure. And that's all things around like we showed you earlier. Do we fractal? Do we W? Do we head and shoulders? Do we triangle? Right? These are all examples of structure. So, this conversation, back here, bottom end of the range, divergence in place. All right, well, at this point, hopefully everybody sees we got a nice W that comes in here. I can actually be a buyer on this candle way over here. We've got location, we got confirmed divergence, we've got a W in price, away you go. And then at this point, following all this, while all this in place, you can, if you miss this breakout, you can do things like reload zones, and notice the market dipped right down against Mountain Man there. So that actually is not a bad sort of add to the trade or get in off of the initial breakout. This is also what they call a Wyckoff check, where the market comes right back down and checks the original double bottom breakout and then continues on its way. So do we have anything like that at all here now? And, because we don't even have any signs of divergence, I can't even move beyond reason number 2. I'm stuck here just waiting for my indicators to actually start turning around and turning back up. So that's where I would be. And for like new people to trading, to try and give you the highest odds of success, give you the highest odds of actually being in winning trades. That's why I suggest you go through this process of 3 unrelated reasons to consider taking a trade. And right now we're stuck at number 2 here. So that's a pretty detailed look at this ZEC. Sure hope that helps. Let's keep an eye on this on broadcast going forward, and let's see how this plays out. We originally started off this conversation trying to figure out what was it that was actually lighting this this altcoin market up here. It might be interesting just for fun. Let's go and see. First off, this index is making lower lows, so it's relatively new. I don't know whether we can actually, we certainly can't come up with things like reload zones. But we could do, and I don't know if we can draw studies off of this. Geez, looks like we might be SOL. Isn't that interesting? You can do it here. They have, here's our drawing tools. We could do something fun, like if you're looking for trade location, we could do things like extension studies. So we had a nice range here that was lost. And then we can come on here and we can draw our extensions going the other direction. Let's see if this thing works now. If I go like that. All right. So, and they're just using the TradingView defaults. I often suggest to my students that you actually draw these studies differently, because if you use this study this way, yes, you have extension levels on the chart, but you also have reload zone levels, and this gets very confusing. I might suggest that you build 2 separate templates to do extensions. Interesting, off of this entire range, you can see how the market was interested at this 2.618 level. So that might be, justification for you to be thinking about reversals. I suppose we could draw off of like this range. What I'm looking for, and I sort of talk about it as my parking garage, I like 200% range extensions, and then the golden ratio, 1.618. So this is my parking garage idea. So we got 1.618, so that should work. All right, so there is 1.618 off of this particular range. Is that useful? I don't know. That's tough. I don't know whether I could really make a case for a trade location here. What I'm worried about on an index like this, I mean, it sure is nice to see a little bit of uppy. That's encouraging. But what I'm worried about is if I go AB, maybe change that to a nice thick line so you can see it. And then I go CD. Now let's expand that again. Yeah, so do you see how this AB, CD takes us into that 1.618? It's kind of a hard level to see. Let's change that to yellow. Right there. That would be my ultimate target. So I'm a little worried, you know, there's an old expression in the market, wicks and tails like to be eaten. I'm a little bit worried that we have to come down and probe against these lows. So I think it's a bit early for us to get really too excited on the bullish side here. It's nice to see this uppy, don't get me wrong. And I suppose, you know, using that same sort of logic that I did earlier, if we do this level and we say, okay, well, what would be sort of natural 50% retracements, think WD GAN, then we should be thinking something along the lines of a dead cat bounce. Yeah, now that makes sense to me. I like that. Because that would basically bring, 50% level would bring the market right back against these highs. So I don't know whether we're done here. And it would just be curious to see what it is that's actually launching this higher. Because even off of our sort of mid-tier half-decent list, I don't really see a heck of a lot of bullish action here. And I really don't see it on any of these names. So I'm not quite sure what's actually driving the bus here. All right, I've been blabbing away for an hour or so, probably a couple hours. I hope you've enjoyed this offering. I hope I've helped you guys a little bit. Kevin here seems to have an idea that he likes. Maybe I'll leave you with that. And then actually somebody in the Hangout there was asking a question. So why don't we do the, we'll do, you know, this is an interesting stock. I'm very interested in the stock market right now. I'm playing a lot of penny stocks. I think I showed you guys that venture cap index. It looks like it's trying to turn the corner. But anyway, that's here nor there. We won't get into this today. Most of you guys are crypto oriented, but you know, if you do want me to look at stocks, I can look at a stock name as well. But somebody's asked a couple times just to look at this REN. So what the heck you got here? I think it's a good idea to try and look at these versus US dollars. So I don't know whether I really like the fact that you can't look at it versus US dollars. I'll tell you, using a base currency that is extremely volatile unto itself, it sure makes this game difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Very, very difficult. So, you know, we'll look at it here versus BTC. But, you know, it's a bit of a challenge. You know, everybody should look at this and go, okay, well, I see a W. Brian likes those W's. I mean, like the candle body level was there. That was $5.99. They took it as high as $8.90. So, you know, any way you shake it, especially for the traders, if we go down to like maybe like an hourly chart, there's probably a pretty good trade there. Let's see where that was. Yeah, so that was off of here. Yeah, so actually the hourly chart, you can clearly see there's the original W there. And interesting to see how this was nothing more than like that Wyckoff check. There's another W that came in down here. And so that was that rally. Probably, and what is that? That's 478. And the rally peak was, we said it was about 800 or 900 or something like that. What's that high? 710? No, looks like it's got to be higher than that. 6, 7. Oh, isn't that weird? Oh, my mouse is not cooperating. Anyway, whatever the hell that high is there, I'm not quite sure why I can't focus in on that. There, 890. So the guys that did buy that 480, that's them selling half on a double, right? You could do Ren times BTC USD. Oh, I suppose that's an interesting idea, Eric. I haven't thought of that before. So, the trader, I think that was their trade there. I think that's pretty straightforward. The investor, I think that, we had the market come down, try to break out, and the investor was just politely told, sorry, no W yet. Actually, this is probably a really good anecdote of sort of, Joe Sixpack versus little old ladies. Little old ladies might have come in here and just bought this and said, you know what, I believe in the story. I've done my fundamental research. We're at the bottom end of the range. I'm more than happy. Like we said, we did. I think we did. Maybe we didn't. But if we can do that again. Maybe they're going to come in and just, reload zones through there. You can see a nice little reload zone entry there. The market rallies up. They do have their sell order half on a double. Maybe they missed getting filled on their sell order. And then the market craps out. And little old ladies, they're just sitting there. They've done their research. They bought against the bottom end of the range. And it turns out that they get their double off up here. Boom. Done. That's very normal for little old ladies. But at the same time, too, this thing could have just kept working lower, and that little old lady would just be sitting there doing nothing. If anything, when I look at this, and I think probably more of this community is they're not little old ladies. I think everybody fell in love with the little old lady kind of approach when we were in a rip-roaring bull. But then they're realizing now, gee whiz, in a bear market, little old ladies sit there underwater on positions for a long period of time, and they can. That's not out of the ordinary. So my hunch is that this community is probably more like Joe Sixpack, right? Typical guy or girl, Jane Sixpack. And their simple philosophy is that they risk 50% of their investment. If it breaks 50%, then they just get out. In this particular one, if you had taken this double bottom at roughly 600, notice here we came down to 300 and change. I can't say that, Kevin. Where's Riza? Yeah, there's Riza. Those are all the guys that were sitting out on the patio. I'm thinking like Riza, Josh. Josh is definitely Joe Spliff. Raph, and all those guys. Sorry, all YouTubers are like, what the hell are you talking about? Somebody said something really funny in their little hangout here. But anyway, the point being that even Joe Sixpack would have survived this. But notice that our original double bottom, look what actually came in here, and this is a really good looking double bottom. Everybody should look at this and go, holy crap, do you see the divergence? YouTubers, can you see that divergence? That's a beautiful divergence in there. Absolutely beautiful. And notice that we really didn't get any killer divergence like this on this bottom. Right? It was kind of wishy-washy. Nothing really developed solid there. And cute little div right here. But this is the poop. When you see the nice deep test and then the breakout through the middle there. YouTubers, can you see that? That's right. Excellent, Eric. Eric, you must have taken the education program. But what we usually like to tell people is the better the looking the W on your charts, and just think of what your grade 3 English teacher wants to see. If you get asked to go up to the chalkboard and draw a W, what does that look like? Right? That's a good looking W. If you go up to the chalkboard and you draw something that sort of looks like that, what's she going to say? She's going to be like, man, that looks like crap. Try again. So, beautiful, well-defined W here. Oh, just absolutely beautiful. Willie's nice and stupid. Good anecdotal sort of confirmation. And, of course, this divergence developed when the market was doing that, heading down. Right, divergence. And then look at this W. Beautiful, well-defined W. That's absolutely textbook. And how ironic, eh? It's actually exactly the same level as the original sort of little trader bottom. So if you're going to be long this thing, I think that like 470, 480 sats was the level. Also, too, really good example of that Wyckoff check we talked about there a few minutes ago. Market rallies up, comes back down, checks the original bottom, holds it, and starts to consolidate, and here comes another W. Nice little consolidation in momentum, right? 3 reasons for a trade. This would probably set up one of my bot setups in here, looking for a shot up top here. So, that's looking back, right? Whoever asked me to look at this, that's what you want to see to get all excited about a name. But where are we there now? Well, we're sitting right here now. Oh boy. So, what did we say was the first reason to consider justified taking a trade? And it might be that, hey, we're making new lows, right? That's fine. Buy against bottom end of the range, that kind of talk. Anybody on YouTube, do you remember what's our first reason to consider taking a trade? Thank you, Ray. And what's our handy little tool that we cannot buy until we are at or below? Anybody on YouTube remember this? Eric, hopefully you remember this from level 1. Ray, I don't know whether you're part of the school program or not, but this is basically right down your alley. Anybody remember? Is there some sort of tool that we can use to try and say, all right, now I can officially start thinking about buying? Anyone? No? All right, well, maybe I'll write this down. Reload zones. Agreed, YTube is getting a level 1 summary in an hour. Yeah, well, the problem is it's like 2 or 3 hours. Thank you, Eric. Good job. And so you can see that there is, if I wanted to be a buyer, there is the area where I can start thinking about actually buying. Are we there now? No. So I can't even consider buying until we get down into this area. And gee whiz, look how close that original double bottom is in the Wyckoff check area where basically the smart money was loading up. Look how close that is to reload zone locations. So my hunch is if I really wanted to be a buyer, I got to sort of wait for something down in here. So can I touch this right now? No, unfortunately not. I'm not going to get, we can look at OBV. This does not look very happy at all. M's are usually bearish, W's are bullish. You can see the W's down in here. OBV was an awesome tool to help you time that entry. But do we look like that now? Nope. M, maybe even M'ing out now. In our education program, we teach you how to read volume bars. To me, clearly we can see that almost everybody is all just falling asleep, both the bulls and the bears. All right, take it easy, Kevin. Great contributions as always, dude. So I can't really even be interested in this right now. But, next time you see this kind of action with this kind of volume breakout and the divergence and Willie Stupid, please poke me. Because then I'll probably want to buy it too. So, Okay, I've been blabbing away now here for an hour or two, so I think we'll probably leave it at that for today. Got a really good sort of little lesson there, a couple lessons. We did some nice overview of the market and higher time frame perspective of what I see happening in Bitcoin and crypto. I'd still like to really find out who it is that's actually driving this rally here on this shitcoin index futures. So if anybody watching this YouTube later on wants to comment what they think it is that's driving this, I'd appreciate that. And also too, all you people on YouTube, there's like 40, 50 of you now. We are going to have a contest coming up here for a seat in our fall level 1 program. Help you, build a trading plan, really identify what type of investor you are, and then by definition, that'll tell you what kind of risk you should be taking on particular trades. Help you learn what a half-decent setup looks like, location, divergence, structure, go. We give you a number of different tools to identify location, to identify structure, to identify indicator confirmation. And then finally, how do we put that all together in an actionable plan that actually forces you to act on a daily basis? Trade journaling, trade logging, spreadsheets, all that kind of fun stuff. That's sort of what we do in our level 1 program. So, if you're sort of just, hit and miss, you're firing darts. Hey, these guys on this site say this is a buy, so I'm just going to go pile all my money into it. And you found that hasn't really worked very well, and you would like to learn how professionals actually come in and manage portfolios, maybe give our school a consideration, because we've had some really fantastic reviews. Generally speaking, I think that people get really good value for the program, and it just gets you headed in a solid direction to start off your trading. So you have tools to sort of manage your behavior. You have tools to manage your emotions. You have tools to frame when you actually are expected to act and when you're not expected to act. And keep in mind, when it comes to trading and investing, ironically enough, 80-90% of the time, our job is to do nothing. We may be in a position, do nothing, don't tinker, don't mess with it. Identify your entry, your risk, and your profit-taking levels ahead of putting on the trade, and then just let the trade do its thing. Those are very, very hard things for new people to trading to really get their head around, and those are the kind of things that I think we really help people with in our education program. So I think we'll leave it at that for today. I've given all you YouTubers, and I noticed that we get a good 500 to 1,000 views of this. So if you happen to have an idea that is spitting out location, divergence, structure, put the idea down, because if it's a good idea, a good trade is a good trade is a good trade. I'll buy it myself. If you are interested in our contest for a seat in the upcoming fall term, put your name down, right? Give me some sort of indication that you're interested, and we'll put you in the raffle. And then finally, your assignment, everybody's watching this. Why is this shitcoin index, and I'm not swearing because that's the name of it right on the screen here, why is it catching a bid here today? Is there a name that's popping? And is there a fundamental driver in any of these names that we can actually start being rational investors and saying, well, the technical bottom that's coming in here is because this event is coming down the pike. Okay, I'm going to try and shut up now. So have yourselves a great day, everybody. All the best. I sure hope you've enjoyed the offering. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Kiss your baby for me. Go and have a really good afternoon. All the best, and bye for now.